My dad says that St. Petersburg has a special meaning for him. He considers it as a second hometown. Unfortunately, he hasn't been there in 15 years. Our hotel was found in the depths of the city. From the window, it was a typical Petersburg yard. It was right in the middle of the historical center of the city. Everything had been going very well ever since we stepped off the train. My mom's old known friend Vika and her husband Boris met us and helped us arrive at the hotel. Later that night, they invited us to dinner. The restaurant was not very far from the hotel, so we decided to take a walk. St. Petersburg is full of remarkable streets. This was one of them. My dad said that in his young years that he was greatly impressed by the view of this street while he was on a city bus tour. There is almost nothing special about this street when you are close to the buildings. The most exciting view reveals itself when you leave the street and take your last look. My dad had since then remembered this view when he was 7. It was still exciting to look at for him. St. Petersburg has a maze of canals and small rivers. We were walking down on the Fontanka River boardwalk next to a crowded line of parked cars. The rivers were full of tourist boats of all sizes. We then decided that we should take a boat tour too. We finally reached the restaurant we were looking for. The place looked a little unusual on the inside. First of all, our table was inside a blurry drape that surrounded the whole table area. This created an impression that we were the only guests and the most honored guests there. The food was served with a certain style. Time flew by quickly. We did not seem to notice that we spent more than 3 hours there. We finally decided to leave, so we started to walk out the door. But the owner of the restaurant offered my dad a shot of special homemade vodka. He could not refuse. The next morning, we arrived to the heart of St. Petersburg, where the winter palace of the Russian Tsars were located. There are rumors going around that the place will be repainted the original color, probably beige, but most Russians agree that green is the most memorable color, since it was painted green and still is many years ago. Yes, my shoes untie themselves magically, and when I say magically, I mean magically. While we were waiting for the ferry that would take us to the summer residence of the Russian Tsars, here is a song that best illustrates my dad's feelings about this great city.
Нашей славы трудовой, слушай, Ленинград, я тебе спою задушевную песню мою. Слушай, Ленинград, я тебе спою задушевную песню мою.
We took our seats in the front compartment. I have never in my life seen a boat quite like this. My dad told me that this kind of boat was mostly built in the 60s and 70s. These boats went through a number of repairs and improvements throughout their history, but still remain unique because of their features. This particular boat had a plaque saying it went through a major overhaul in 2004. This next plaque is not clear of what the meaning is. Some people didn't even notice that the boat had already left the dock. The low bridges across the river is the main reason why this boat called Meteor can't reach its speed maximum. When the boat reaches its real speed, it rises from the water and becomes about 2 times higher. It is a joke, but partially true, that the bottom stays dry while cruising. though Meteor may underpass bridges precisely in the very middle, almost touching it. We left behind the Petersburg waterfront, and in a short 15 minutes we reached our destination. There were crowds of people moving along the gravel trails. The granite gravel is a local resource and is very helpful in keeping water out of the trails, and it does rain very often. St. Petersburg is the Seattle of Russia. This well-designed and maintained park is very pleasing for walks. But walking was not what the visitors came there for. Everybody was rushing to the famous cascade fountains, built to please Russian Tsars. The statues are covered in real gold and are very shiny. My dad said that he was here a few times before during his childhood. Since the weather is usually a bit rainy, my dad was once listening to the very popular song of that time that was delivered through the loudspeakers in a park in that area. The song was saying that water was everywhere, just everywhere. We decided to visit the large palace uphill. It was about a 50-yard climb up. This makes the fountain water source run downhill to the fountains. The fountains do not have pumps, obviously. My dad said that there were always long lines here. That's usual. What's new? Look at this guard pretending to be a New York cop. He enjoys how cool-looking he is. Dad said that it is obvious that any kind of photography is prohibited in Russian museums. There happened to be an accident that ruined the rest of the visit. We knew that Russia tries to attract foreigners to national museums by raising ticket prices for them 2 times higher than Russian citizen prices. This measure is welcoming only in the eyes of museum authorities. They joyfully suspect people who do not speak Russian that they are violators. They do not ask for passports at the ticket office. Because of this, a furious woman with her highly trained ear figured out that Alejandro was a foreigner and must be charged even more to be admitted. It was hard to explain to the authorities that while we accidentally violated their rule, it did not look like a friendly rule at all. They could not believe that the Metropolitan Museum in New York City allows a suggested price and never asks for citizenship. Well, to make a long story short, we ended up that night at Vika and Boria's apartment. We were having a very good time and almost missed the fact that the famous drawbridges of St. Petersburg were going to be up very soon. We wanted to see that, and this would be the only opportunity in years. It was several minutes after 1 in the morning, but people were still filling the granite boardwalks. Large buses were unloading a number of people. Even the river was getting crowded with small personal vessels. Dozens of boats of all different sizes were set still on the cold waters of the Neva River, waiting for the event. Lights were everywhere. What was great, and was a little bit of a surprise for us, the crowd was friendly and enjoying the night, even though it was an hour past midnight. The next morning we took a city bus tour that we were eager to take ever since we planned our trip. It was strange to not find any double-deckers back in Moscow. We boarded the bus just the same way we did it in many other cities like Paris and Toronto. It was good that there was a pre-recorded guide that had different languages of our choice. That was important to us, because I am not a fluent Russian speaker. As always, like on any double-decker, you can make a stop and then hop back on the bus and do it all day long. Our tour started on Nevsky Prospect. This is a song that my dad thinks best describes our thoughts and feelings up to this point. Later on, we found out that we had enough time to take a boat tour before the train to Yaroslav departed from St. Petersburg later that afternoon. Riverboat tours are very popular in St. Petersburg. There is a dense maze of small rivers and canals, in addition to the main river called Neva. St. Petersburg is also like the Venice of Russia. There's also more than 100 bridges total, crossing over each and every canal. We bought tickets and boarded the boat. It was amazing how the tour boat turned about and around the narrow canals. The boat's length is a little bit smaller than the width of the canal, so the boat's crew must act highly coordinated in order to turn the boat. As it was during our Chicago bus tour, we were warned against low bridges. You have to pay attention or else you lose your head. It was the same case here. The first remarkable building I noticed was the Savior on Spilled Blood Cathedral, as the locals called it. Earlier on the double-decker tour, I was very sleepy. As you could imagine, I did not want to get off the bus. On the bus tour, there was a stop on the cathedral. I did not get off. I now regret that I never got off to get close to the cathedral. The cathedral, I think, is much more beautiful and fascinating than the St. Basil's Cathedral at the Red Square. Some time after the trip, I received a construction set for making a cardboard model of the Savior on Spilled Blood. With that set, I realized how beautiful the cathedral really is. The set looked almost exactly how the real thing looked like, except smaller, of course. Sometimes you can see some unusual activity around the canals. Look at this brave guy. He expressed no fear of the height or the water's depth, or confronting with the police shortly after. He just jumped right off the bridge almost carelessly. we did not find out what happened to him after. We didn't know where our boat tour was going to take us, which left room for surprises. We turned towards the winter canal and we realized that we were about to be on the open waters of the large Neva River. Before we get there, here are a few words about the winter canal, which was built in the early 19th century. My dad said that this place is one of the most attractive spots in all of St. Petersburg, in his opinion. It has 3 bridges running over it. My dad said it reminds him of the low bridges of Chicago. Here we are on the open waters of the Neva River. This is the place where you start to realize that St. Petersburg is not just a regular city, but it's a port, too, with a huge shoreline. St. Petersburg is not just a land city, it's a coastal city. We saw lots of tourist boats around us. They had different designs and sizes. It became crowded and our boat had to wait in line in order to get back to the small Fontanka River, where the boat's home was. There we took our last look at the famous summer gardens. Unfortunately, it was closed for construction. Next time we hope to visit it.
Песня летит над Невой, город засыпает дорогой, парком и садам липы шелестят. Доброй ночи, родной Ленинград. В парках и садах липы шелестят. Доброй ночи, родной